Welcome to the Pink Room, a space for real talk by real women about the real issues of our day.
As minorities, we're not only your day laborers. We're not only the ones that clean your houses or your hotels, right? We are human beings that have capacity to be part of every area of this country.
Our strategy needs to be to get into these political offices.
Every election, every seat, every office.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And Teresa, if I would just like to say, I don't consider myself a minority. If the world wants to see us as minorities, because we are actually the majority, but if they want to see us as minorities, then call us the super minority.
People started to post the microaggressions that they were experiencing from their professors.
Wow.
And hearing so many perspectives, they're like, you have to do something. If I have the resource, I'll do well as well. I'll do well just as well as others do. Don't make things easier for me. I just want the resource. That's all. And I think that's the misconception, that they think that we want handouts. We don't want handouts. We just want what the others get. That's it. Give us what you give others, and we will do just as well.
Excellent. Ashley.
As long as you can ensure that one group of people in this country have access to good education,
right,
another group does not have access to adequate education, right, you basically guarantee that the group that has less access to good education, then remain the sickest people in our system. And so you have the conflation of several policies, or the absence of policies, that basically create and sustain the perfect storm in this country.
That's not where your application is going to come from.
Right.
Humans fail us all the time. It is not in someone else. You can't find in someone else what you cannot find first within yourself. What entryways were there for someone else to come in and feed you false narratives? You have to build up those fortresses first. And when I say fortresses, I don't mean walls to block people out. I mean confidence within yourself to know that you can look in the mirror and say to the mirror, Latoya, you're loved. I love you. I love you. You are beautiful.
Start your watch parties. Cast the Pink Room on your HD TVs. Post your comments in the chat. This space is yours too.
Welcome everyone to the Pink Room. And today's topic is going to be a very, very interesting topic, and we are looking forward to having a very lively discussion, not only amongst ourselves here in the Pink Room, but also with the audience who's watching. We're going to ask you to start those watch parties on Facebook, share the link on YouTube, be ready to chat in. There's a lot that we want to share, and there's a lot that we want to hear from you today, as we discuss physically nonviolent but mentally and emotionally toxic marriages with our guest Fiona Herwood. So today we again want to share with you some of the activities that are going on in For Real Women International land all over this globe. We have the ladies from Limon, Costa Rica. They have been doing a fantastic job partnering with the SOS Village of Costa Rica there in Limon. And as you can see by the photos, they are hosting a weekly event for young women who live in the SOS villages. I think their age is 14 to 17. One of the ladies can correct me if they're on the chat. And what they do is that they're carrying these young ladies through a curriculum, helping them to build their future for excellence. It's a beautiful program. They have fantastic topics which they carry the ladies through intentionally, making sure that these young women, even though they're in an SOS village, have the tools that they need for survival, the tools that they need to become the strong women and the real empowered women that they need to be in this world. So congratulations to Limon, Costa Rica. Great job on that. Great job for partnering with the SOS Villages of Limon, Costa Rica. Then we have one of our international events that's coming up is that we celebrate the International Day of Action for Women's Health. And out of the gate, Team Brooklyn has already partnered with the Flagstone Family Shelter, and they will be having an event that they usually commemorate around this time where they have a femme hygiene, and they also have a health check with the women and girls in the shelter. They give away products for the women, and they have talks with them, and just empowering the women to help them feel safe, help them to be able to manage some of the issues that women face when it comes to feminine hygiene, and make sure that they have the products that they need. So congratulations, Team Brooklyn. Fantastic work. That will take place on Saturday, June 5th. And if anyone wants to participate with them, you can reach out to Team Brooklyn. I'm sure some of the members of Team Brooklyn are online. They can share with you how you can get in contact with them, whether that means donating or donating products, feminine hygiene products, so that they can also give away at the shelter for mothers, daughters, and all the women that are in the family shelter. We want to remind you that we have a great opportunity for you to honor a woman who has inspired you. This woman might be living, she might be deceased, but you are going to honor her by opening the door for another woman. Go to our website, www.4rwi.org, and there you're going to look for the scholarships, honor the women in your life. We have 3 categories: Pearl, Ruby, Diamond. And this scholarship will be closed on May 15th. So we invite you to do this as soon as possible. You'll receive a certificate with the scholarship. You also receive social media shout outs with the scholarship. And you will receive sort of a narrative from the woman who the scholarship will be going to, so that she can share with you the difference that the scholarship has made in her life. So we invite you to go to our website, www.4rwi.org, and find out more information about it. We have good news for you. So on the 16th, we have been promising Anna Gabriels, the world champion boxer, will be with us. She'll be sharing her story. She'll also be sharing her journey as a professional woman boxer in a field that's highly male. And even when they're females boxing, the challenges that they face are really rigorous and different. She'll be with us. She'll be sharing her personal story, which is also an amazing story. So we invite you to make sure that you're with us on Sunday, May 16th at 8:30 p.m. We will be skipping next week because it's Mother's Day weekend. And in honor of all our mothers, those who are mothers who have birthed from the womb and those who haven't, because we're all mothers as women, we will be skipping this weekend so that you can celebrate and take care of self. And then we will be joining again on May 16th. Make sure you invite your friends and that everyone comes on to listen to the inspiring and amazing Anna Gabriels, who just completed a fight about 2 weeks ago and not only maintained her title, but won another title with that fight. So we will have her on the 16th. So I'm going to bring on the PR hostesses, co-hostesses, Shauna and Tricia. Hi, guys. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi, everyone.
So today we want to incorporate, because we've been talking to you guys about self-care, and we end all our events, we end with community care. We want to incorporate the self-care aspect. So we start with the self-care and we'll end with the community care. So we're asking the question, how's your heart? How are you doing? And it's a personal question. How are you doing? how is your heart? And if you're on the chat right now, and I see several people on the chat, we invite you to tell us, how are you doing? How is your heart? And we're going to screen that. How are you doing? How is your heart? If you're on YouTube or you're on Facebook, share with us, how are you doing? How is your heart? And if you haven't started a watch party on your Facebook page, we invite you to start a watch party. And if you want to share with friends, remind them that we're on, come on. So how are you doing? How is your heart? So Shonda, Tricia, who wants to be the first?
Oh boy. So we had not been doing this for a while. And here in the pink room. And when Norca asked if it was okay to do this again today, I took a little while to respond. Because like Sean and I were talking before, there's not a single word that can actually describe where the only one that comes to mind is exhausted. Not only physically, not only emotionally. I see Arlene said the same thing.
Right.
But intellectually. So I'm finding myself forgetting things as essential as, did I take my medication? Yes or no. Forgetting meetings or changing weeks. A meeting's supposed to happen the following week. I scheduled it for this week. And I think that, I guess what has me the most exhausted is that it seems like we are not learning a thing in every sphere of our humanity. People are having parties and the pandemic isn't over. Everybody out on the street in every country. I mean, look what's happening in India. It's like, I think Chantal said it best in one of our meetings, living your best life. And you're like, what? You know, what? In regards to systemic racism, things haven't changed. And people that you believe should have gotten it by now are so clearly not getting it that you wonder what it's going to take and if it's ever going to take, right? And having 3 sons and wondering whether I made the right decision coming back, what the world that they're living in is going to be like. I'm just tired. And you don't want to be tired when you're starting a show and talking about things that are so heavy. But I could not come on here and say, yeah, I'm good, when I'm frankly just like feeling I am depleted.
But this is exactly what we want. We want to hold space for our real feelings, right? So thank you for that, Tricia, because clearly, and by the responses we're seeing here, clearly a lot of people can identify. Sean.
I don't think Trisha could have said it any better. I'm just going to find my own words because I think that there needs to be some new words created in the dictionary. It doesn't have to be Webster's, but to truly describe how I, as a Black woman living in America, is, currently feeling. And it is so hard to minimize the feelings of being inundated with the ignorance, the lack of willingness, the pure hatred that continues to exist, trying to eliminate love, which is light that knocks out the darkness. So I really, my heart is hopeful. Thank God for being rooted and grounded in, a faithful foundation. But mentally, emotionally, and even sometimes spiritually, it feels like there's just these circles and these other worlds that I know exist, but sometimes you feel far removed. How do you get into them? And is it that I'm trying to reach people or people trying to reach me? There's so many layers of thoughts and feelings that are going on in my mind and in my heart that I truly find It's difficult to put one word, don't know how to express it. Trying to love on the people in my inner circle as much as possible because that brings me the greatest joy. But with all this unnecessary bitterness, hatred, ignorance, intentional harm, it can be very heavy.
Right. I want to use Falaka here. She's saying that newly cognitively disabled from MS, a daughter living with autism, mother passed in February, live in the United States, doing well considering, but it's a lot. And thank you for that, Folake, and thank you for Glenda and Maricela and Arlene for sharing your how you're feeling exactly. This is Folake. I can identify with you at some part with some area with an area which is the area of loss. This week I lost 3 seniors that I really admired. 2 of them females. One of them well-known, cherished teacher. Her husband was my professor in college. She passed away, and that was a shock, unexpected. But COVID, her son put it well, and her son is a doctor who has treated a lot of patients with COVID. He said, COVID has placed humanity on its knees, and that's exactly it. So that was a shock. And then lost another. Her name was Lesbia Raquel Hein de Wong. I even calling people's names because they deserve to be honored with their names. The other person was Naomi Stewart, Sister Stew, as we used to call her. Amazing person. This lady was my neighbor. She lived down the street from me when I lived in Costa Rica. And I would come from work, and this lady would call me, "Are you home yet?" "Yes." "Come over, I got some soup." "Come over, I got oxtails." "Come over, I made beans and whatever it is that she cooked that day. And I would walk down the street. Sure enough, there was some delicious thing there. And not only would I go and get a plate, but I would sit with her for hours. Sometimes midnight, I'm coming back up to my own. The kind of person that I believe every woman needs someone like that in their lives. Someone that you don't have to be pretending, someone who is just there, is willing to listen, is open. I think we lack in womanhood sometimes. We lack seniors, and we don't appreciate when we have them. Those seniors that are just there to comfort us. Sometimes it's just a pot of food. They're so necessary. So I am experiencing loss at this time. So I want to ask a question. And then my uncle passed away 2 days ago, which was another shock. But I want to ask this question because this question is really about, this segment is really about self-care. So what are you centering this week for your self-care? Because we think self-care is just the hair and the nails, right? But what do you need to center? What are you centering or choosing to center in your life this week to take care of you? Because there's so much going on. So much.
Well, I just want to touch a little bit something Maricela mentioned in response to something that I said. I'll explain what I meant. I don't blame people for being tired of COVID, but our actions still have consequences. Right? And one of the people you mentioned, we both grew up on the same campus. And it ended up being a reunion of friends that hadn't seen each other, had taken care of each other the entire year. And seniors have taken care of themselves, stayed by themselves, being very vigilant. And then now that people are tired, they sometimes make decisions out of that frustration that are costly. And that's what I mean by this isn't over.
Right.
Even as emotionally exhausted as we may be, we still have to make wise choices. And it's hard to make wise choices when you're tired. And that's what I'm going to center on, when you're asking me what I'm going to center on. I am going to center on deciding what I do based on what I know and not based on what I feel.
Hmm.
because I have made many decisions based on what I feel: loneliness, anger, frustration, aloneness. And then I do things, then those are very expensive down the line.
Hmm.
So, what I'm centering on this week is going down the list of things to do and doing the list. And just because sometimes that's what it takes, you have to get back into rhythm, putting one step in front of the other until you're back on track. I will act based on what I know and not based on what I feel.
Shonda.
I am going to center on one thing at a time. I cannot, as much as I think I, as a woman, and I'm just going to say, try to help and solve a lot, I cannot be in 10 places at one time. And so I'm focusing on one thing at a time, one breath at a time, one step at a time. And in so doing, maintaining a physical and mental balance with doing that. So I'm focusing on taking care of me physically and mentally. And that means I have to do one thing at a time. Focus on me right now, because I will be no good to others if I am not good myself.
Good point. This week, I find that I'm centering loyalty, and not a kind of crazy loyalty like, if you must do as I say, you don't do as I say, you're not my friend, that kind of thing. I'm being more intentional about, if there needs to be a return on investment, and it doesn't have to be monetary, it doesn't have to be anything tangible, but if I'm investing time, energy, brain power, because we mentioned that we invest brain power, right? Investing brain power in a relationship or in a group or whatever that may be. And the loyalty is not there, then it's a sign for me to step back. I think that too many times as women, we are blackmailed into believing that, okay, you have to do this because however, whatever people might be doing to you and not appreciating, then you just need to just take it and be there and do it because that's the way things are. For self-care, I'm choosing no longer to do that. I didn't really do it before, and now more than ever. Life is just too short. You gotta invest your time, your energy, your brain power in things that will bring some type of return to you. Even if the return is that you saw the prosperity or the ascension of the other person, but there has to be some return. So that is my choice for my self-care. So thank you, ladies, for sharing. I just want to center a few people that are sharing here. Heart aches for injustices, suffering for myself, embracing the here and now. Yes, Damaris. Okay, Tricia she's responding to Tricia. People are just tired.
Yes, we're all tired.
Yeah, we all are tired.
Mm-hmm.
We all are tired. We all are tired, right? And we have to still fight the good fight, right? Regardless of being tired. What's going on in the world of women? What's going on in the world of women? So let's start. Okay, so Tricia.
So
fantastic news here. Let's hear.
So when we had our show last week, Sunday, one of my friends, actually one of my male friends, sent me this piece of news as we were talking about domestic violence and what's happening in Quebec. So when you first read it, it sounds like a wonderful thing. And it is. You're pledging a whole bunch of money to fight domestic violence. Here's why. In less than 5 months, 10 women have been murdered in domestic violence scenarios. And then the government was pledging a tenth of this amount to fight domestic violence. And then when these 10 women have been murdered, mothers, wives, husbands or lovers committed suicide after killing them, then there's this pressure to say you need to do something more. But there's layers to this. So there's shelters. Women of color are getting turned away from the shelters where they're suffering from domestic violence. So this is not just they're being abused in their homes by their loved ones. They do not have an equal access to a system of protection. Where do you go then? Where do you go then? If the system that is supposed to be protecting you is also discriminating against you and turning you back. How do you turn away a woman who's fleeing for her life from the doors? So what this money is going to do is going to open more beds. It's going to add staff. It's going to train more of the staff that exist. But the underlying layer there that can't be trained out or bought out or money thrown at it is the systemic racism. And the other part is they're saying, why are we not talking about the root causes of why we have in less than 4 months, in not in all Canada, this in Quebec, why is it that we have already 10 women that we know of have died because of this? And we talked about this last time because everybody's on lockdown. You're seeing more of the person. People are getting more and more aggravated. I saw something a couple of days ago about women experiencing microaggressions at home. How do you experience it? Like, he has his own office with the door locked. Don't bother me while you're also at work, but you have to be nursing and cooking and everything at the same time. We're all in the same, like what they say, we're all in the same storm, but we're not all on the same boat.
Yes.
So this is a good start. I believe that governments need to take heed of what is happening here and understand that, yes, words are not enough. You need to put your money where your mouth is, but that as you put that money, that you're sure that you're providing access to those who need it, and not just to a certain part of the population that speak a certain way or look a certain way. It needs to cover those who need it. And that is, that's going to be the hard part. But at least they're putting money where their mouth is, and that's good news.
Right. And this is about the third country that we're hearing doing this. Listen, COVID has unearthed all the things that we knew were there. But if it serves to do things like this,
so be it.
So be it. So be it. And let's receive it. So be it.
I just one more thing, Norca. One more thing. Sorry.
Go ahead.
More women in positions of authority lead to these kinds of decisions.
Agreed.
So we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but it's so important that as women, we vote and put women, because that at least balances the conversation out.
Agreed.
That's it.
Agreed.
I like that.
Breonna Taylor, Shonda, she's back on the scene.
That's right. It's my girl. Brianna, we love you. Merrick Garland, who many know was supposed to be a Supreme Court judge sitting in during the President Obama's term. And for some reason, that did not happen. And we know a lot of it has to do with hate, politics, etc. Here it is. President Joe Biden is now in office, and Merrick Garland is now in charge of the Justice Department. And almost to the day he was nominated, he immediately said he is going to be investigating the Louisville Police Department and its practices to make sure that the systemic issues that have continued to affect Black and Brown communities is not, been happening longer than we are currently aware of. And if so, there are going to be some consequences. And we already know the call is for defunding of the police or changing the funding. So his being in this position in charge of the Justice Department now will trigger not only in Louisville, but in Minneapolis and a whole host of other communities that have had the systemic practice. And it's not just something new, it is something in the past. And there needs to be some serious consequences. In terms of Brianna, there's already some cases, a criminal investigation. So there's a lot that's still going on. And, people think that because her family was, thrown $12 million, it makes everything fine. It's not. he needs to bring to light what we have always been saying since prior to um, the freedom of Black and Brown people here in this country, that we are constantly abused by overseers, officers, etc. So I'm happy to hear that Merrick Garland, I think March 10th, he was nominated in, and then it was 3 days before her anniversary because she was actually murdered on March 13th, 2020. So thank you, Mr. Garland.
Fantastic. Liz Cheney. I'm bringing Liz Cheney here because although we may not fully agree with her politically, she's doing something that we need to learn. We need to take a page out of her playbook. She has been standing up against her party consistently. She has been called names. She has been bullied. She has been threatened. And she has boldly said, these are my beliefs, and this is why I believe that this is the way we need to go and not that other way. I thought it was important for us to showcase her because oftentimes you find women that they tend to be in positions of power and then they subdue themselves in a way to be able to stay in that position. Let me go with the guys. So that's what the guys want. I don't agree, but I'll go with it, right? And she's basically saying, no, this is what needs to happen. And she's been consistent. It's not on one policy, not on two. She's been consistent. She's been vocal, and more power to her. As a woman, she needs to make sure that her voice is clearly heard, and she needs to have her own mind, whether that be within her party or outside of her party. So we just wanted to highlight that today. Then, of course, we all saw the historic scene of two females sitting behind the President of the United States, the Vice President, and also the chair, Nancy Pelosi and Kamala Harris. So let me hear your thoughts, ladies. What were your thoughts? This is really historic. As someone said, oh, we need our boys and girls to see this moment and understand what it means, not only to America, but to the world. So what were your thoughts on this?
You want to go first, Shonda?
Sure. America was just not welcome for what has always been able to happen, and it's happening right before our eyes in real time. Very powerful statement. Both a Black woman and a white woman in two of the most highest positions, just behind the President of the United States of America, the most powerful country in the world. And here they are. Take a look at them.
Miss Nancy Pelosi is 81 years old.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, she is.
Listen.
Love it. I love it.
Women a third her age have not shown the energy and stamina and come throughness that she has. So when people started talking about her being too old, I was like, no one else is able to navigate this time like she can. So those two seats behind the president are not quota filling seats. Mm-hmm. Each one of those women has fully earned the right to be there. Right. I will be honest though. When I saw them sitting behind that chair, I was like, it's long overdue that they have the chair.
Agreed.
It's long overdue.
Agreed.
But I will also say this. Mr. Biden, he has all of my respect because he has done what he said he would do. And he hasn't backed down. Has he done everything that needs to be done? He's like in day 102. Come on, people. Like, right? But he's done a lot. And part of what I believe his success is that he has learned to listen to the women in his life and to give, not just listen in the back room, but giving them the position and the prominence that they need. I haven't ever seen a vice president like Ms. Kamala Harris. I have not in any country. A vice president that is so out there, her own agenda, very meaty, substantive things to talk about. So a really proud moment, and we need to support.
I I concur with you in everything. I'm reading Cicely Tyson's biography, and it amazes me the stamina and the clarity. Remember that this woman wrote this book, published this book, and then she died a few days later.
96 years old.
96 years old, and did not stop working until the last end. I am just amazed because I think women, and in mentioning Pelosi's age, 81, we're also working against a stereotype about women. Once women have children, they're no longer viewed as valuable, because some people equate the worth of women as to having children or not. Unfortunately, right? And some women believe that. They believe that their lot in life is just to have children. And if they don't have, or the children grow up, then they don't have anything else to do. I think these women are showing that there's so much that women can contribute and should be contributing for our societies to be equitable. More power to Nancy Pelosi. She is clear about all kind of issues. I'm just amazed when I see her strategies. She knows the playbook. She's written the playbook, and she plays it well. Kamala Harris, I was so touched when I saw her husband, Doug. There's a video of him sitting and, saying to her how proud he was of her and that he was with her. I think that they're an example of, coming into the topic that we're going to talk about, an example of what it means to be a power couple. This man was a well-known lawyer with a very a very successful career, and he decided to step aside from that so that his wife could take this very important role. And clearly, it's a role that she handles well, and there's a lot more that's coming there. I do agree with you, Tricia, that we hope to see a woman sitting in that role. And we need to be in these spaces as women, because we need to make sure that we're speaking for a more balanced, a more equitable society. And it can only happen if our voices are at the table. Let's not make a mistake about it. Let's not think that it's just going to happen because I raised my boys to be good. No, you need to sit at the table to make sure that there's equity there.
You're at the table or you're on the menu.
Well, we've been on the menu for too long. We need to be on the table. Exactly. So today we have with us Fiona Harewood, and I'm going to bring her on. And Fiona, good to have you. Such a pleasure to have you. I want us to start by, Fiona, I would like you to share a little bit about yourself. And I also want you to share about that fantastic book that you have that I've read. And I think most of us on this call have read. So share with us a little bit about yourself. Share with us a little bit about your book. What made you write that book? With so many, with your life story, actually, in relationships. So welcome, Fiona, and the Pink Room is yours too now.
Thank you, Narka, Shonda, and Dr. Tricia. It's so good to see you out here. I just feel privileged, Narka, to be here, not only as a guest of the Pink Room tonight, but because I'm also a member of this Selfless For Real Women International. I feel privileged and blessed to be a part of this, where we together, we aim to empower women and girls. And this organization is doing a fantastic job of that. So I'm happy to be a part of that organization. Now, as you heard, I'm Fiona Harewood. I'm an author, motivational speaker, and life coach. When I'm not following my passion of being the author I am and daring dropouts to become dream makers, I am working for the federal government. This is one of my books. It's called River Never Smooth, Reclaiming Power After Abuse. 3 years ago, I did not see this in the making. But sometimes the Lord brings us to certain places where we have to see what we are supposed to be doing. And it was at the point where I lost one of my very dear friends, very, very dear to my heart. She was the closest person to me at that time, probably even closer than my husband at that time. And she passed. When June passed, I felt within my heart that I wanted to go with her. Nothing was really healing that hurt. And I came to the place where I had to find something to do in order to get over losing June. That's when this book, River Never Smooth, came to my mind. And it was nothing but the Holy Spirit, because I had written this book and shelved it for approximately 6 years or more. I had written it in fiction. I knew my story had to be told, but I was ashamed. I was afraid to let people know that the person I'm speaking about in this book was Fiona. I was ashamed. But then things happened. One day, my prayer partner, she said to me, Fiona, we're going to listen to Oprah Super Soul podcast before we pray tonight. And in that Super Soul podcast, there was an author who was talking about finding out that prayer works after they did like 2 experiments. And one of the things that resonated with me while he was sharing his story was when he said that at the time when he realized prayer works and he had to go back to his colleagues and said, listen, prayer works, he wondered whether he was able to face his critics at that time. I had nothing like this book in mind. But then, as he said that, the question keep resonating with me. Are you ready to face your critics now? And I'm like, as I kept trying to dodge it, the question kept coming. And it wasn't until after the prayer that my prayer partner and I had, that I really realized what was happening. And it was the Holy Spirit asking me if I was ready to face my critics, where my fiction story that is or was supposed to be nonfiction was concerned. So at that point, when I realized it, I sat up in my bed and I said, yes, Lord, with your help, I can face any critic now.
You know what is fascinating about this, Fiona, because I think oftentimes, well, we have been made to feel that our experiences in life, we should be ashamed of them, right? And I find it fascinating that in your book, you go through several relationships and marriages that you had. But that journey, to me, is critical. It's not a journey. And here's what I'm going to say. A lot of women have said in reading your book that one of those relationships they had or have. So they could identify, right? Because it's not one story. There's so many stories in it. And I think that really is a power breaker in the book, why it needed to be the story that it is, nonfiction, because you're bringing to bear here so many different aspects about relationships. So tonight we're talking about toxic relationships in marriage. One of the reasons why we wanted to talk about this topic, as we shared with you, Fiona, is because oftentimes women feel that, okay, he's not hitting me, he provides, he pays the bills, I should not complain, it's okay. but there's a breaking down of the spirit and there's a breaking down of the mind. So let's start first by talking and you that had the experience, you can definitely walk us through some of that. Defining a toxic marriage. What are some common characteristics of a toxic marriage?
That's a good question, Narka, because marriages are toxic when unhealthy conditions that are not dealt with fester. And when they fester, they become bigger problems. They turn into mental, physical, emotional, all different kind of abuses. Abuse that you probably don't even think that certain things are abuse, but they are. And Shonda said something when she started earlier that sometimes we need to redefine the dictionary, words in the dictionary. And in examining this topic, I ask myself really, what is psychological or an emotional abuse? What does it mean to me? And that's when, for the first time, I defined what I went through experiencing psychological and emotional abuse within a marriage. And I literally I would describe what I thought to myself to you. It was an unexpected situation that resulted in sickening, matchless pain, felt deep within my heart, coupled with suffocating embarrassment, causing me to curl up in the fetal position, wishing and hoping that tomorrow never comes.
Wow. Powerful. My goodness. I like your strong use of language because it's real, right? It's very, very real. And I don't know, my co-host is here. If you would please definitely jump in. And when we talk about toxicity in marriage and mentally and psychologically, I also want to add the spiritual aspect. Because there's spiritual toxicity. Anyone that's using the Bible to beat you over your head into submission, that's toxic, right? Shonda, Tricia, what would you like to add to that?
I think it's like ingesting some poison. When we who are married are in relationships that are just so unhealthy in totality, where, as Fiona just said, she was wishing or hoping that the next day didn't come. That is just like ingesting poison that just sickens and sickens you over time. You know, like that's so poisoning. So, I mean, this is going to be a good topic tonight, because I think that it will help a lot of us who are in marriages see things for what they are. Those of the who are in toxic relationships hopefully can see this, but this is some powerful stuff right here.
Yeah.
I think that using the language that Fiona used to describe it is so important, because the other voice is saying nobody's perfect. We all make mistakes. You're not perfect either. You need to be able to sacrifice your own ego. You made a vow till death do you part. You promised you would honor and obey. So when you're feeling, it's like you're fighting against yourself. You know what you're feeling. You're not mistaking what you're feeling. It doesn't feel good. But at the same time, you have all of this responsibility that you feel you have, even if there's no children, even if it's not even a marriage. But this whole idea of you're not perfect either, that then wants you to say, okay, I should let this one slide.
Right.
Let's give the benefit of the doubt. It's not worth it. being without someone is worse.
Mm-hmm.
We had a conversation where someone said it's better to have any father or a father,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we can easily talk ourselves out of
Mm-hmm.
decisions that we need to make because we're not framing it in this way.
Mm-hmm.
We're not recognizing that what we're feeling, drained, depressed, exhausted, depleted, sorrowful, no joy, we're not putting the name on it. In medicine and in public health, if you don't tag it, it doesn't exist.
Right.
Right? Because the tagging it allows you to do something about it.
Right.
If you don't call it disease X, then you don't prescribe for disease X and you don't do the public health measures that you need to do because each one has its own measures. And as long as women, we're not tagging what we're living in as a toxic relationship, then we're not able to, even for ourselves, like Fiona said, identify that that's what we're going through to then be able to do whatever it is we need to do.
You know, to Tricia's point and my other hostesses, the greatest problem that I find with this is that it centers the feeling of a lack of deservability for women, right? Because since I am not perfect and I need to let things slide, and any father is better than no father, and any man is better than no man, and he's not hitting me, and he's good in church, even though he yells at home and he calls me whatever. When we do that, we're literally saying that we don't deserve better.
But Narca, we do that when
Poison.
constant.
Right, we're drinking poison. Go ahead, Fiona.
We do that when constant beating at us, whether be it psychological, emotionally, or whatever. You don't have to hit with an hand or with something.
That's right.
But it takes away our self-esteem. It erodes our confidence and our self-esteem. So at that point, we accept anything, which is not the place to be.
In other words, anything in a relationship that is diminishing of the other should not be accepted or tolerated.
Definitely.
You're diminishing the person's well-being, their mental state, their sense of being, who they are as a person, how they look, whatever it is that you're using to diminish, that's toxic. That is toxic. And we need to be more clear about these things. The language one, define them, tag them. We need to be more clear because I love Shonda's what she said here. It's drinking poison. We're going to screen some comments here, which I found very interesting. Valerie Anglin said that some instances is like how carbon monoxide takes you out subtly. It starts with the little things that you excuse, ignore, and explain away. Then boom, reality hits you like a boulder. On point, Valerie. On point. On point.
And that's why we need to put a stop to abuse in any form from the first time it happens. Exactly. If we love ourselves enough, the first time we are hitting a relationship, we need to say this would be the last and make it the last. And I shared a story not too long ago with a group of women where in my first marriage, I was beat down physically and all the others so much that I told myself when I got out, thank God I got out alive, I told myself I will not be hit again in another relationship. When I got married the second time, I told that man, I said, one thing you need to know, you would not hit me. You should not hit me. And if you do, there will be consequences. At that time, I didn't even have a plan, but I knew that nobody's going to hit me again. He either forgot or he got out of his thoughts and decided one night that he would hit me. And why did he hit me? Stupidly, He was one of those people who having sex one time a night was not enough for him. I traveled to Guyana, took my children for the Easter holiday with their grandparents, came back alone, had to go to work the next morning. I was jet lagged, tired, and he wanted to have fun. We did. We had fun. I fell asleep, and within less than an hour, he was waking me up again to have sex again. That's when I said to him, no, I'm not doing it. I'm tired. I need to be at work tomorrow. I need my rest. He proceeded to hit me, and then he was my husband, but he raped me. At that point, I said, okay, this will be the last. The next morning, I got up and I made sure I had a toothbrush in my bag and a change of underwear and my other little things. And I left with my tiny working bag. But I had plans. That afternoon, I decided the midday I would go to the house when he wasn't there to collect some of my clothes. I didn't plan to leave fully. I would have been out for about 2 weeks. But when I got there, he was home and I didn't expect him to be home, so I couldn't get my clothes. The evening, I showed up at the house with 8 policemen, my friend and me. 8 policemen. When he saw that, he nearly fell through the floor. But he knew that he should not hit me anymore. That was the last time somebody hit me. So you know something? When we are in certain situations, we as women have to love ourselves enough to put a stop to certain things that should not be happening.
Yeah, thank you for that, Fiona. I want to share here a comment by Maricela. She said that she realized that her marriage was toxic. One of her sons wrote behind a picture of herself and her husband, "Look at my depressed parents. They need to get a divorce."
Marcy.
All after reading it. So clearly we're all agreeing here that anything that diminishes, and thank you for sharing that example of standing up and giving an ultimatum. Oftentimes women need to understand that ultimatums need to be given, but you have to proceed. You can't give empty threats because it's not going to take you anywhere. So our next question is what are some warning signs of toxic, unhealthy personalities that women need to be mindful of before marriage? Because oftentimes you hear, well, he wasn't like that. He was very caring. He wasn't like that. And then, we got married and then suddenly the monster came out. What are some signs? What are things that we need to be looking at in that pre-period before marriage comes?
And for the most part, Narca, there are signs.
Exactly.
Sometimes we see them
Exactly.
and we turn a blind eye. I was there. We turn a blind eye or we say to ourselves, when we get married, it will be okay.
Or I am going to change him, Fiona. That's the other thing. I am going to change him, which never happens.
Never happens. Never happens. But there are some things that you can look for, some simple things like the inability to say, I'm sorry. Sometimes people do things and all of us, as Dr. Tricia was pointing out just now, none of us is perfect. And in this imperfect world, there is no perfect relationship. However, we need to know where to draw the line. So sometimes we would be at a place where one of the parties did something wrong. And the easiest thing to do, especially if you didn't mean it that way, is to say, I'm sorry. Some people cannot say, I'm sorry. They think it diminishes them. They think that it takes away from them if they say, I'm sorry. You don't need to be with anybody who refuses to accept that they're wrong and that they're sorry. When you cannot relax, when you're in a relationship, like you're somewhere and this person keeps texting you, keeps blowing up your phone. Where are you? What time are you coming home? It happens at the inception when they're like that. You don't have to wait until the marriage to see certain things. These are also people who are unable to set boundaries with their partners. You would like to keep boundaries where your digital space is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want anybody going through your phone. Not that you have things to hide, but if somebody will pick up your phone and just go through it and see who you were calling, who you were talking to, and that kind of stuff, you don't need that person to continually be around you or you around them.
That's right.
You need to beware if they're always praising you and always saying you're perfect, you're just the person I needed. Beware. For the most part, it's not like that. Nobody is perfect. And if they're going to try to tell you that you are, something is amiss. Then you notice how they treat you when tough things happen to you, like you lose your job. Are they willing to stick around? Like if you're gaining weight, what do they say? Oh, you're getting too fat. You look ugly. I had one of my, you know, I was married 3 times. At one time, I was ashamed to say that to anybody, but now I don't care. But one of my husbands looked at me and said, "You are one ugly so-and-so."
Wow.
Out of the blues, we weren't having an argument. No. Out of the blues. You have to also be careful when they're in the rush to do everything. It's not 3 to 6 months yet, and they want to get in your bed. They want to be engaged. They're talking about marriage. You don't know them. They don't know you. Before you decide that you're going to get into anything like that, look out for these warning signs. Lack of appreciation.
Yeah.
It's so when 2 persons are together and somebody does something, even if it is to wash some dishes, it's nice to acknowledge it.
Right.
Thank you. That was nice of you. If you can't get that out of your partner or out of the person you're dating, beware. People who hold grudges, they bring up stories that happen way back. Do you want to be reminded of the time you made a mistake? No, you don't. And there are so many more. Once you're not comfortable, don't wait. Check it.
Fiona, these are such great pointers. Like, awesome. I think that oftentimes when I hear people say, you know, I didn't know they were like that, you weren't paying attention, or you knew at the back of your head that it was being revealed to you, but you really thought that this person was going to change. And I love the things that you're bringing up, because these are things that once you get in the proximity of a marriage, are you willing to live with these things? So if you see these things happening before, you really have to pay close attention. Valerie here is saying, when they want you for themselves. I've heard women say, oh, you know, he loves me so much, he doesn't want to share me. That's a problem. Isolation. They will want you to think it's grand love when they want an account for everything you do and everywhere you go. I have a pet peeve, and maybe this is because I'm a minister's daughter and wife, and I see that happen a lot. Whenever women can't have their own mind, they have to do exactly how, you know, that to me is a whole problem. They can't have their own mind. They can't have their own life, because doing so, it's kind of like going against the marriage or going against the person. No, God gave you a brain. God gave you your personality. God gave you a purpose that you need to fulfill. So I think these are things that need to be looked at carefully. Tricia, Shonda, anything else you want to add?
She touched every point.
Yeah, she was good.
Fiona touched every point, and listening to her,
right on point.
Yeah, listening to her, what came to my mind is that, let me see how I say this. We are quick to excuse behavior when we feel we have some benefit that we will lose if we do not move forward,
Yeah.
whatever that benefit may be.
Mhm.
I think it's so important for us to let women know that it's okay if they never get married.
Yeah.
Because even for women who initially weren't thinking about marriage, as time goes on, the pressure is so immense from everybody
Mhm.
that some men will wait for these women.
Yeah.
Get a church girl.
Yeah. Yeah.
They will wait for these women who now are willing to praise God for whatever man walked into their lives, because now they will be able to have a husband.
Mhm.
And this whole, how do we prepare? What are signs that you can see before you're married? The first signs you need to identify are in yourself, not even in whoever it is. In yourself. What are the signs in yourself
Yes.
that you see that if you get in any relationship, you are willing to let things go by for the sake of
Right.
whatever?
What are the voids? What
is it? What is it that you're willing to give up?
Mm-hmm.
What is it that you're not willing to listen to?
Mm-hmm.
What is it that when people who know the person come up to you and say, I heard so and so, and you quickly dismiss, block, and defend without taking time to sit with it and say, okay, let me take some time and listen to what they're saying. Right? I think that there's a lot of things. One of the things that everything you said, Fiona, but the one that struck to me the most was the time. And sometimes it's not, these are smart people. So it's not necessarily them moving the relationship along. You're moving it along. They're letting you. And you feel that since no one has paid attention before, and this one is, I better grab onto this because my train is leaving the station. So he doesn't have to be the one saying, let's get married, let's get engaged, blah, 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 blah. No, you are moving it. You're doing it. You're doing it and they're letting you. But they already saw what they can get and who you are, and they're going to help you, push you. There's a saying in Spanish, cojo y lo empujan. You're layman, they push you, right? You're already feeling that the train has left you. So someone who you feel has a commitment, and everybody says men don't want commitments, and all of a sudden this one does, you feel this is a blessing and you keep it moving. So there is nothing that needs to be so short that if you wait, you lose something worthwhile. Convoluted, but it's better to wait, because if it's worthwhile, it'll be worth waiting for. If it has to happen now, and if it doesn't happen, you lose it, lose it. It's better for you to lose it than to not give enough time for you to see these things, because these things take time to notice. You have to be in arguments to understand how that person behaves in arguments. You have to go through ups and downs to be able to see how that person is in the lows or in the highs. Right. There's people who love you in your lows. They cannot take your highs.
That's true.
So you need enough time to be able to live enough experiences to say, okay, yes, I'm going to do this the rest of my life or no.
And it's really important to point out, we're in a forum that we're dealing with women, we're speaking to women. However, there are some men who are good men, but they don't come upon good women. So those men have to look out also.
So I want to center two things. There's a comment from Maricela that I want to center, is very linked to what you were saying before, what both of you were saying. And there's a comment from Betty that I want us to go into before we move to our next question. So here's a comment from Maricela. We know, but as women, if we aren't healed from abuse at any stage of our lives, we're bound to overlook those toxic warning signs and settle for whatever love and acceptance we get. Here is what I would like to say about that. Very carefully. If we know we have these weak points, we need to be extra careful. And that means that I need to prepare myself when it comes to relationships. That means that I need to look for therapy. I need to know my triggers. I need to know the voids. If I didn't have a good relationship with my father, I may be looking for. There's so many things now that we can prepare ourselves for. Our mothers didn't have it, but we have it. So to me, we no longer have an excuse. We have to put mind over heart when it comes to this matter. Why? Because it's a serious matter, and we're going to talk about it in question number 3. But I think that we need to arm ourselves. We need to look for the tools so that we can protect ourselves and make sure that this is a healthy relationship. So Betty's had this comment in Spanish, and I want us to. There's some things I want to push back at, but I want to center it here. She says, I believe that marriage is a school in which you register, you enroll, but you never graduate, which means that you never really stop getting to know your partner, because there's always, the partner will always come up with something that you may not expect. So it is important for us to consult with God first before taking this very important step in our lives. Okay. Comments.
This is, I don't know if you all can hear me now. Sorry, I was having some
Yes, we can.
Okay. So this is what I was thinking of, and I may have missed out on a few pieces, but culturally, our communities, we learn and absorb so many different things about relationships. There are a lot of things that are also sheltered, right? Because it's to protect the relationship to a degree. And how do we, and this is why this pink room is so authentic, so true. Fiona's bringing it raw. We have no excuses for helping to prepare anyone who's going into marriage. You We need to start telling younger people what they're starting to look for, to start to look for those things in yourself and to make sure you are there and to make sure you're ready. I can say, and I'm sure for us on this event tonight, that culturally we usually hear by a certain age, when are you getting married, when are you having children, right? Nobody's really talking about what experiences have you gone through, seen, or know about that you would not want because you know it made you feel uncomfortable, or you saw what it did in those relationships that you would not want in yours. I don't think sometimes, and I could be wrong, perhaps somewhere in the world it happens where those real conversations take place, right? I think that a lot of times, and I've heard it through peer, like there's just so many things you don't know, you're not fully prepared for. You have to live, you have to learn. Dr. T, you said it, you have to go through to see the ebbs and the flows, etc. It's part of life in any relationship, right? But definitely in marriages. But prior to that, where are you as an individual? So that as you go into a relationship that begins to get so serious that you're ready for marriage, you really understand who you are, your boundaries, how you are going to protect you, and as they say now, your mental, your faculties, and your physical. In addition to this person, now you're now becoming one. It is so key that this conversation takes place, because sometimes I just think that, and I could be wrong and you all can debate it, but I think that the real authentic conversations that need to happen with both our young ladies, our boys and our girls, young men, young women, about marriage, that we miss it. So when we get into that, because we miss those cues within ourselves, we also miss those cues in our marriages and or in our relationships. And that's when we continue, as I was saying, you drink the poison, because the poison you've already had, some may be in you. Now granted, there are some people out there who are so extremely manipulative, both men and women, that you see zero.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not act like it doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
That you see zero, that you get in relationships that start off wonderful to communicate, and then all of a sudden Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde happens, right? So, but I just think that those type of real conversations, and thanks, Fiona, for just keeping it raw, need to really happen. It's not just, oh, you ready? You have to have the baby. Come on. No, are you comfortable with who you are?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Let me add to that. And thank you so much for that, Shonda. The only thing that I would say is I've heard too much of the I didn't know the person was that way. I think we've used that as an excuse. I am sure that it happens, but I don't think it happens with the consistency that we claim. This is constant. Oh, I didn't know he was like this. Oh my goodness. Really?
But Norca, I think that, let's say it's true, right? Let's say that it didn't start out as a friendship.
Right.
It started out with you already liking this dude. So because you started out liking, you're blind to whatever. But you have friends. And if you don't have friends, you need to get friends that will see what you don't see. And just like girlfriends who are going drinking, name one that will not drink and will be watching out in the party, so that whoever's going to get something slipped, someone is there that's sober and conscious that can pull her out.
Right.
We all need, as women, to have friends in our lives, sister, friends, somebody who will be able to check you and say, I know you love him. I know for you he's like everything, but I see this, and this. You better watch out, girl, because we're not expected to do this alone. And if you have someone who you like who does not like to be around your friends, that in itself is a red flag. Because you are with people who care about you.
Thank you.
And if them caring about you bothers him, we have a problem.
Tricia, you're hitting on it, and I think this is my appeal to women. We need to get to that. We need to get to the ideal that Tricia is talking about, because the ideal needs to be not only that we have that sober friend, but I'm willing to listen to her. Because oftentimes, no, she jealous. And we don't listen. We don't listen. So it's really a two-way street here, and that's really the point. That's really where we need to get to as women, and stop using. And yes, Shonda, I am opening space that it does happen, but it is not, ladies, 9 out of 10 as we make it seem, that we just did not know, and suddenly this person just became Dr. Jekyll. There's stuff that we were.
That's not, and granted, that's not my major emphasis. I'm just saying it because it does happen.
Right.
But when we don't know who we are, sometimes we don't see that stuff that girlfriend is seeing. That person who that designated driver.
And a good point. When you're in love, you're blind. You don't want to see. That's why you need that designated person. Like, listen.
But there's one.
What I see.
There's one other element here, and that is, it could be that you see them, the red flags, but you see other couples in the church with the same red flag.
Hello.
And if they were able to celebrate their 40th wedding anniversary, and you know for a fact that man was groping you and looking at your friend's skirt, and the woman is still there, if that is what is modeled, I'm not even saying your parents, because your parents could have a wonderful relationship, but if the environment you live in shows these things happening, you go to somebody's house on potluck and she wants to say something and he's constantly talking over her.
Yes.
But they're still married and they are the heads of family ministries.
Yes.
You're going to head family married ministries, and you see that woman crying in the bathroom. Then you begin to understand for yourself that this is normal behavior.
Exactly.
And that you need to take it because she took it. She's taking it. And so you need to take it as well.
Because this is the place that they said is where we learn. This is the place where
it's not that the flags aren't there.
Exactly.
It's not that they're there. You see them. You're like,
we've been normalized.
This doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right. But then Other people are living with it, and they're the people that are celebrated. That when it comes February 14th, they all stand up in the front of the church with who's been married 1 year and they get one rose, who's been married 5 years, and everybody's walking up there and have celebration of new vows and all kind of manners. And you're looking at it and you're like, but didn't this dude just send me a text like last week? So that
Last
must be
night.
normal.
Alicia, you know, you're reminding me of a case, and I'm glad that we're having this, because to me that speaks to that comment about marriage is a school. I don't listen. I'm sorry. I'm not going to be enrolled in a university forever.
Give me the
getting mine.
degree.
That's a real BS degree.
I will not be enrolled
That's a real
in a
BS
university forever. So I'm not accepting the thing about marriage is a school, right? So you're reminding me of a sad case that I would never forget. This person was a president of a union. And we were all seated at a table eating. And the son, rude, I don't want to say the word child, we're at a hotel, and the child is saying, I want to go up. I'm bored here, blah, blah. And this man looked at his wife and said, take him up and stay up there with him. Huh? And everybody people didn't even blink. I think I was the only crazy one, like, what? Instead of correcting the child, he said the grown woman, yes. And everybody was like, oh, this is normal. You're right, Tricia. We have normalized these things within our environment so that when they happen, we're like, okay, this is what marriage is.
Yes.
And we have minimalized the damage that it is doing.
Yes.
Not only have we normalized it, but we minimize the damage, and then that's what makes that damaging behavior so normal that it's toxic, where that poison just keeps, being ingested.
And the worst part, we've normalized it, we've minimalized it, and now we've shackled women, telling them that should they ever leave, they're going to lose their souls, they're going to go to hell. Listen, we shackle them to the devil, and then we tell them they're going to listen. There's a lot here. Let me move on. Arlene.
Don't move yet.
I need drums.
Yeah, don't move yet, because this part is central, Norca. This what you just said is central. We have been told that unless there's adultery, you have no right to ask for a divorce. Mm-hmm. And it's not biblical, and God will not grant it or forgive it. And whoever else you get married to will be committing adultery with you as well, because there was no adultery. That's so right. Everybody's holding out to see who's gonna fall first, to see who can be married legally. And we say, if you leave, you need to, and I'm not saying this out of like, I imagined it. Someone told me in a prospective job when I was going through some things, was there adultery? I said no. That person in a leadership position said to me, then you need to understand that you can never get married again. And if you come work here, you need to understand that we will never allow you to have any other relationship.
Listen, Tricia, the way we define, let's start with our definition of adultery, right?
No, that it's not going to be anything less than full inside somebody else's body. That is what
I know. That is what we say, but we need to define. And then we have a different rule for men and then for women.
Yep.
Men
say that again.
Now, they're not only have they committed, they only have married without you knowing of any adultery, but they're leading. So I don't even listen. We open it. I listen.
You're the one who said
I don't know. This
you said this is the pink room. It is unscripted. Come with your truth.
I agree that it is, but we have Fiona here. We have some questions we want to get through. I totally agree with everything that is being said here. I believe that we punish women because we subjugate them to a life of servitude. It's tied on to some of these devils. Not all of them are. I didn't say all of them are, right? And these women would have been better off by themselves with their children or better off with somebody else. But anyway, let me center Arlene here. Arlene says here that culturally we need to have more of these honest conversations with young women. so that when they get older, they have the tools it takes to choose the right spouse. Because commonly what happens is that when the time comes to start dating, women are so happy to be in the relationship, they miss the cues. Yes. They get married, and then they feel stuck when their mothers and aunties just tell them to pray about it. Arlene, thank you for this, because that's the other solution we give to everything. This poor woman is suffering, and we go home and pray about
the war room. The war room.
Pray for it.
The war room. Go into your prayer closet.
But you know, one of the things that
my friend, I want to stop here. Sorry, this is our friend Elke. Read what she wrote.
Yep.
Okay, it's true. You need those friends that are going to tell you, no. Sorry, go ahead, Fiona.
We need to also encourage those who have not been married as yet, that before they get into that, try as much as possible to have lengthy counseling, and not from any and everybody.
Yes.
Counselors who would put you to sit down and tell you like it is.
Yes.
Don't sugarcoat it.
Yes.
Not 2 weeks and a month before the wedding, you're looking for counseling. From the time you meet the guy or the girl, counseling, it helps.
Absolutely.
That's
So
why they're called friendships.
Let's go to the question here. We're trying to get through the questions. It's hot. And this is good because clearly it's a necessary conversation. So what impact can a toxic relationship have on women and on children? And one of the reasons why we're asking this question is because oftentimes we hear, you need to stay there because of the children. Pray about it, stay there for the children. So let's look at what impact can this have on the children and on the women.
I've been doing some research, and I came upon a young man on YouTube who goes from school to school sharing his story of domestic violence. His story is that briefly, his mother and I think 3 or 4 siblings were hacked to death by the man in the I don't know if it was his stepfather or what, but it was the mother's husband. He was the only one left alive because he wasn't at home. He lives today to tell that story. For the most part, we put our children in danger when we know that our relationship, our marriage is toxic, and we decide we're going to stay. It's not easy to get up and leave a marriage when you have children. It's about one of the hardest things you can do. But you have to take into consideration what good is it doing for the children or that child when that marriage is not good, when things are so wrong in that marriage. So you have to consider the children. You have to look at the fact that when you allow that child or those children to stay in that marriage, and you and the partner, you're having quarrels and fights all the time, how does it affect that child? And do not say it will not affect them. Do not say that they don't hear you. Children, sometimes we give them, we think that they're stupid, excuse my language, but they're not, and they are fully well aware of what's going on. They see actions and they read actions. So sometimes when we keep them we keep them and we stay in the relationship, the parental and child relationship can be affected, because if they see their father doing their mother something wrong all the time, for the most part, their minds will turn against that father. Some children, they would not even be bothered that that father is treating the mother badly, and they would stick with their dad, whatever he does. So you know what kind of a son you're raising when he's seeing his dad do bad things, and he is sticking with that dad. You know what you're raising there, right? You don't want to do that.
Yeah.
It also triggers behavioral problems in school and even among siblings. For the most part, when there are issues in school with children and you call them in, if you're to get the right of the story, that child is acting out because of what is going on at home.
Yeah.
They also have trouble with future relationships. There is so much damage that can be done when we leave children in relationships like those. My son said to me only the other day, probably a year or so ago, he said, Mom, because of how we lived with your situation, I had to go get counseling. He is about to be married. Well, it was long before even the wedding date that he decided to go get counseling. He said he could not live with himself, with knowing what he passed through, and take that into another relationship. And that was as a result of what he saw in my relationship. He did not see much about where his father is concerned, because when I left the marriage, he was 9 months old. But he saw me in other relationship. He had step parents, and that bothered him in ways that probably beyond hurt. But I'm glad that he took the step where he looked for counseling. You get children having poor academic performance because of situations in home, what they have to go through, what they have to tolerate. There is a study with the University of Notre Dame which showed that children responded similarly to both verbal and nonverbal conflicts with their parents. Now, you would think, okay, we don't quarrel in front of them, but you guys, you don't talk together. Sometimes you don't communicate at all. When children see that, they know what's going on. They know that something is not right.
Excellent.
There's a lot more, but
excellent. So basically, the damage is there.
Yeah,
the damage is there.
If I may say too that there's some studies. I think I read one not too long ago about the brain of children that's not fully developed. So you imagine the damage that you're feeling that undeveloped brain with, and the trauma and perhaps the permanent brain damage that it can cause, that it can affect this. But if I can just add to what the impact can do, what impact can a toxic relationship have on women and children, a combination as a, I'd say, a gatekeeper in a system, it can continue to perpetuate these systems and gives reasons for these systems to exist, and to always have women and children who suffer because of this type of mentality and behavior. So not only does it have an impact physically, mentally, and psychologically, but societally, culturally, communities, religious institutions, places of employment, etc. It continues to perpetuate the mentality of how women and children should be on the bottom of the totem pole, get treated, dealt with, etc., because it keeps happening. And so some people in their sickness want to believe, well, this is how we should continue to treat you or deal with you and see you in the world. So that's just another way I thought about it.
Powerfully put, Shonda. Thank you for that, because I think we don't realize that it's not just the individual, right? You're talking about the community, the culture, systemic wise, how it impact. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that you shared that with us. So why do women often believe that they're responsible for the mistakes and the behaviors of their husband? We've made them believe that. Where is this coming from?
And we touched on it earlier. Abuse has lowered their confidence and self-esteem. So anything that their partner throws at them, they believe that he is right.
That's right.
They hear their abuser from time to time that they say that they are responsible for what happened. After years of hearing these kind of things, they believe it. So they tell themselves that they are the wrong party. The thing about it, some of these abusers are what you call nice people. At church, they're the leader. In the community, they're the block captain. And the list goes on of the things they do and how people look up to them. So the victim now, when they're in the home and they behave and the abuser treat them a certain way, they think that since he's so nice to others and people see him in this light, it has to be me that is causing this problem, because with other people, it's fine. He's okay with them. So it's me. No, it's not. They are the nicest persons outside. But inside, that's when you see their true colors.
Thank you for that, Fiona. Last week, Valerie shared about her sister and married to a church leader and who was abusing her physically. And when she dared to complain, even women were saying to her, cannot be, because this is such a fantastic human being. And I think that this is where the cycle of toxicity in a marriage is even more dangerous, that you start to doubt yourself, one. You start to believe the diminishment, right? You start to believe that something is wrong with you, that you're really you are the one that's at fault. You need to change yourself. You need to do this, not realizing that it really has nothing to do with you, whether you do or not. That person has this toxic behavior that will not just change by you doing whatever you think you can do to appease them.
Yeah. Well, and remember,
you're taking away.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Doctor.
No, go ahead.
And you're taking away the love for yourself. That love that you have when you start to you're just taking that from you. You're not giving yourself that self-care. You're not confident in who you are. You begin to give it all to this person, and therefore you will begin to say you're responsible because I'm not loving me this way. I mean, it sounds complicated, but it's not, because when you think that something is your fault when clearly you know it is their fault, and then you start to say it's you, what do you say about how you love you, women?
There's another saying in Spanish. I'm remembering all these sayings today. Lámpara en la calle, oscuridad en la casa. So these are people that are bright light outside, darkness inside the house, right? There's a reason why other people may doubt what you're saying. They're not in the position to treat these other people the way they treat you. So they won't, because they have an image that they're protecting. And it's very specific and premeditated. If they dealt with everybody the way they deal with you, then you wouldn't have a question. Nobody would doubt what you're saying. So it is true that they don't see this person in that light, because they haven't had to see this person in that light. And when we think about this, the responsibility for the mistakes and behavior of their husbands, we sometimes say, but he's such a good father, right? He's such a good father, so why would I do this to my children? No man who's bad to you is good to your children. Because the fact that he's not good to you immediately makes him not good to your children.
Could you repeat that again? That is, repeat
That's
that.
it. That's the hashtag.
No man that is not good to you is good for your children.
That's right.
Zero.
That's right.
Because you cannot there's only one water way I know of that is clean on one side and dirty on the other. Rio Sucio. When you're driving into Limon, there's a river that on one side is clear water and on the other side is muddy water. Same river. That's it. You cannot have somebody within the home be loving to one person and unloving to the other consistently all the time. The hatred and anger and bitterness spills out. So the person who is diminishing to you, a grown woman, once your children grow to a place where they are no longer dependent on, and they start confronting, and he will be the same diminishing way to your children. So the fact that he's good with a 2-year-old doesn't mean he's going to be good to the 12-year-old
or the 19-year-old.
And watch it, the reason why he's good to the 2-year-old, especially if it's a girl.
Oh, no.
You know, listen, there are two things here that are important. And Tricia, thank you for that. One thing that I would like us to think about carefully is when we talk about infidelity, we always blame the woman because you're not fixing yourself, because you didn't lose weight, and women have internalized these behaviors. Listen, Beyonce, Jay-Z stepped on her. It doesn't matter how you look.
Where is Beyonce today, though? Where is Beyonce today?
Okay.
Where is Beyonce today? She didn't leave. She wrote a song and she stayed.
Yeah, but she outed him.
Yes, but that's still a problem, Norca.
I get you, but she's not doing what we do. What do many women do? They stay in silence, pretend that everything is okay, and accept it. I get you what you're saying, Tricia. But of the two evils, I prefer that she outed him. He had to go get therapy, and he had to write about it.
I'm not trying to dictate what she does.
Right.
Not at all. Every woman has her own journey
and her own choices to
and
make.
her own choices. And you make the choice you make when you make it, and you can change that choice whenever you need to change it. So just because you took it for 20 years doesn't mean you have to take it for 20 more.
Agreed.
Anytime you decide you can do it. I'm not doing that.
Absolutely.
The reason I asked that question is for the same thing I mentioned before with the church, right? When women see that women stay,
I get you.
Then they have less of a driver, motivation, inspiration, because that same voice will say, look on Beyonce. You don't even look like her. And Jay-Z stepped out and she's there. So why can't you stay? I didn't do anything, Jay-Z, because of the money. You see where I'm going?
I see it, but I still don't. Here's my point with that. And I'm not getting into these people's lives, right?
No, we're not.
Here's my point with that. The fact that she dared to, it might sound like a song, but it was more than a song. The fact that he had to go to therapy, the fact that he had to confront that. A lot of the men in our circles are not doing a quarter of that.
Would never do it.
I will never.
Never.
So I hope that if women are comparing themselves or allowing men to tell them about, look at that one, you're looking at really the back end of that, right?
The entire story.
Exactly. Look at the entire story. Yeah, he stepped out, but he had a price to pay for it, right? Look at the full story. And it was public. There we go.
Exactly.
And it was public. So that is an important thing to bear upon, and not feeling like, okay, it's my fault because how many times have you heard that? I've heard people preaching from the pulpit talking about men are unfaithful because the woman look like a refrigerator. What?
No, and sometimes you look at the other woman and you wonder, because
thank you.
It's true.
I mean, but again, it's still to perpetuate the excuse that, this is what we do. And we know this society and the world sees it as a man's world, because women are still not treated fairly and equally in all walks of life. The home, which is the first place. We know in churches.
Yes.
The churches are just like the slowest people in the world to catch up with gender equality. Oh, hello, wake up, somebody. I mean, yeah, and so it's just this cycle of, we as women are still seen as the reasons behind this is why these things happen. It's always pointed back to the woman. It's your fault. It's because of you. And like you said, it's time we have the voices. And there were women back when and then who did, but physically and because of other reasons like not being able to get credit cards in 1972 if your husband didn't sign for you. So you were in a situation, you were in a rock and a hard place.
That
So
still
you
happens
tolerate.
today, though, Shonda. That still happens today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we had to tolerate it, but it's now time that you call people out on it. They need to be called. You need to speak up on it. And when people don't believe you, it still doesn't silence your voice. You still call it out for what it is.
Right.
So when you go to college, go to get a profession.
That's right.
Don't go to college to get a husband. The point of going to college is to get a means of providing for your own well-being. You can be married to the best husband in the entire world. He can get in a car accident and not able to provide. And you could get married to the worst husband in the world. You need to be able to have a means of defending yourself and taking care of yourself. And that's another part of it is preparing yourself in such a way. We shouldn't have to live in this world, but we do. That you're able to be okay on your own.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's go to question number 5. So now we're talking about what options, besides staying in a toxic marriage, what options do women have? Do they have options? I saw it get Elke when she said that, her fear was, leaving the marriage because they told her she had to stay. Then we had the example of, it's a school, so you learn every day. Then we have, what are the options? What are the options for women? Or maybe they're none. What are the options?
Actually, Dr. Tricia started it when she's telling us that we need to equip ourselves.
Right.
We're not going to college to get a husband. We're going to get our degree so that we can take care of ourselves, just in case things happen. Because for the most part, not in all cases, but for the most part, you find that victims of abuse are afraid and unable to leave because they do not have their own financial backing.
That's right.
That's right.
And it makes it hard. People don't want to launch out if they know they don't have a job. So the first thing we need to do is equip ourselves so that we can take care of ourselves and our children financially.
Fiona, this is powerful that you're saying this. And this is where sometimes I part ways with some of my colleagues. This idea that women should just be home to take care of the children, and they have degrees that we say in Spanish, they're sitting upon the diploma, not doing anything with the degree, and they're just home. And I'm not hating against women who have made the choice to stay home with them. I'm not hating, because that's a choice sometimes people have to make.
Yeah.
When we're talking about a prolonged, you have not been in the workplace. You don't have anything towards your retirement. These are key things that women need to start looking at. You don't have anything towards your retirement. You've not been in the workplace. You're not gaining experience. We're talking also about your skills are not being in development. These are things that can hurt you.
Yeah, definitely. Women must also take action at the first sign of abuse. Don't wait until it gets where you cannot do anything about it. If you're in a situation, you're in a relationship and a situation happens and you deal with it right there and then, most likely it will not happen again. You have to deal with it. If you don't deal with it, it festers, and that's when you have these toxic marriages. Familiarize yourselves with the rights that you have when it comes to where you live and when it comes to domestic violence. You need to be sure you know of the numbers, hotlines, and support groups and those kind of things that you can find help. Make sure you have a friend it's it cannot be said enough. In situations like these, for the most part, your partner may stop you from being friends with a friend, or they may stop you from having family around. Be sure to have at least one friend that you can trust and you can share with. Get information and advice on how to, if you have to leave, how to leave safely, because you cannot just up and leave. If you do that, you're setting yourself up for failure. There must be a safety plan before you leave. Teach your children also, when there are issues, when there is a fight, don't get in the midst of it. For the most part, kids get hurt getting in the midst of parents arguing and fighting. You need to also have phone numbers for places that you can call if you need to leave in an emergency. There are quite a few things. You have to decide whether you're going to stay. If you're going to stay, know that you're making the right decision. If you know that you're not making the right decision, go with your gut feeling. How do you feel in that relationship? Whatever your gut tells you, that's what you need to do. And don't be in denial. If you're in denial, you're only lying to yourself. You're not lying to anybody else, because for the most part, the world can see. And some of us, we're in relationships and we have to keep telling our partner, oh, I'm happy in this relationship. Or you keep telling friends and family, oh, he does this and he does that, or she does this and she does that. And you know to yourself it's not the truth. You know to yourself you're uncomfortable. We need to stop being in denial. When we leave denial, we face what we have to face and we deal with it. Like the women we are. We are women, we are strong. And we need to rely on that strength. We get that strength through Christ, the man Christ Jesus. That's how he made us from the inception.
You know, Fiona, I want to make space here because I want to be very careful in noting that we're not here on an agenda to tell women to leave their husbands. Because I know,
Definitely not.
I know my people, right? What we're saying here is that you cannot live within the toxicity any longer, right? And there are decisions that need to be made. And one of those decisions may need to be, we both need to get therapy. And that needs to perhaps be an ultimatum. We need together to go and get therapy, and maybe separately also get therapy. But something's got to give. What we're saying here is you should never feel that your option is, I'm going to stay with things as they are. But you need to find a way. If you decide I'm going to stay, you need to find a way of helping the marriage to heal. If you decide you need to leave, you need to be prepared, right? So you have options, but in both cases, you have to take some serious decisions. And there are ultimatums that need to be taken. I have a question here that I'm going to screen. And I would like to hear your answers. Betty Angling is asking, I would like you to answer this question. Getting married, is it an option or an obligation?
Especially nowadays, it's not an obligation.
Exactly.
Especially nowadays, it's not an obligation. In certain parts of the world, it's still an obligation because as a woman, you do not have any person. You're not a full person. You move from being your father's daughter to your husband's wife. And if you are widowed, then either your husband's family takes you on or you retreat back to your brothers, and you're always in a position of uncertainty. You're always subject to someone. And this has nothing to do with moral submission. This has to do with literal. You're not a person. You cannot do business. You cannot go to school. You cannot rent a house. You cannot buy a car. There are certain places in the world where you have to belong to a man to exist. We don't live there.
Yes.
We don't live there. So even if you get pregnant from this person, marriage is still an option. It is not an obligation. Just because there's a child doesn't mean that getting married to this person will fix a problem. It may make it worse. So it never is an obligation. Neither is staying. And it's true. We're not saying everybody now go and leave your husbands, because that happens after
Definitely
every
not.
pink room. We get emails, our parents get calls, and there's all these, what are you saying? That's not what this is.
Yes, we do.
That's not what this is. After last week, we heard from Jaylene. What is that her name? Am I pronouncing it right? Our guest from last weekend?
Jelaine.
Jaylene. It takes an average 7 times for a woman to leave, an average of 7 attempts before she ends up leaving. That means there's women that leave after the first time. There's women who leave the 21st time. Okay? And until it is your time, you know what it's going to take. And for your own peace of mind, you need to be sure that you did everything that was in your power to be at peace with your own integrity, your own beliefs of what marriage is, about being what a woman is, about what being a mother is. But sometimes you cannot be in the space with the same person to come to understand what those core beliefs are. And sometimes, even if staying in the marriage long term is an option, you need to be out of the space with the person that's being the manipulator and the abuser, so you can think clearly and make a conscious choice of what is good for you.
Right.
Because sometimes living in the same space will not allow you to think clearly.
Excellent point.
So even to solve the marriage, sometimes you need to step away and know where to go. If you're gonna go step away to a house where they're gonna be doing is sending you back, where it's worse being there than if you had all of those are things. That is why I'm total agreement with everything Fiona has said in regards to having a plan and being able to be. If you didn't think long enough before you got in the mess, you certainly need to make a good plan to get out of the mess.
Right.
If not, it's gonna get messier. But no, I don't think it's an obligation to get married or stay married. Sorry, no matter what text or calls we get.
Anyone else?
Just look at the value of who we are, women. Just look at the value. We're so valuable that some people don't want to really recognize the human capital that we are, because you try to eliminate us, right? You try and have been successful in different parts of the world, as Dr. T said, where there are laws that you have no rights. So look at the value of who you are, of who we are. And so you have innate knowledge that preparation is key, so that you're not stuck physically, mentally, spiritually in somewhere that people want to devalue you. You have the opportunity to move on. You can prepare. Just think of it that way. We're so valuable that people want to destroy us. You're right. We make you a victim of domestic violence. You're so powerful that they put rules on books and laws so that you're not able to do certain things. So preparing yourself, if this is the first time you've ever heard it and you want to share with others, I would think that, we got to understand that we're so valuable that we have the opportunity to ship in the art of boxing. And I know I would love when Hannah talks about this, but it's called dodge or
Yep.
leave. Get in, get out, make your move, and when there's a will, there's a way.
So we
Learn
want
to drive. I'm sorry, Norca.
go ahead.
I For a long time, I was this, I'm not going to learn to drive because my husband's going to drive me anywhere I go. And my mom sat me down and said, you're going to learn to drive. Because we come from a place where you can go anywhere on the bus. So I didn't need how to learn to drive. And I was almost done with med school. And my mom sat me down and said, you're going to learn to drive because you need to have your independence. Mm-hmm. So even if you stay home, do not clip your own wings. Mm-hmm. We do it sometimes to ourselves. Mm-hmm. We cut our friends off because we don't want to hear what they have to say.
Right.
Mm-hmm. We do not have our own bank accounts. We cut off ourselves. We join everything. Mm-hmm. That's another marriage counseling class. Keep your own thing.
And I'm glad you mentioned about the bank account, right? It's important that you have a bank account for yourself. I'm not people who have bank account with their husbands, good, but you need to have your own bank account.
There's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that. He have his own bank account also because he has his money. He needs to be. So we need to be able to draw boundaries around certain things. Mm-hmm. We're going to boil down to. Okay, so there's a question here. It's kind of convoluted, but I'm going to screen it. And then we're going to go to the final question. I want to make space because it seems that this topic is, you're supposed to be sincere when a spouse asks you if they love you. Should you say no if it is a no? For they're always putting this question because they know that they're, I guess, not acting correctly with you. Mm-hmm. Say yes because they're afraid. Just a comment of part of what I experienced. So that preacher passed away without getting me to say yes, for I wanted a renewed marriage vow, which I never accepted. Listen, you have to be honest with your feelings at all times. Tricia talked about integrity, and that is such an important thing. And we have to remember that as women, when we are in these relationships, and we are pretending and we are allowing ourselves to be diminished, we're not living our truth, right? There's a lack of integrity that's running the line there. You need to always speak your truth. Mm-hmm. If it's a no, say no why, right? If it's a yes, good, but it is important. We are not advocating ever for women to lie about their feelings and how they feel, right?
And if I may add, for the most part, women stay in relationships because they still love that individual. When a woman stops loving a man or her husband, it's easier for her to leave. So it's not that she doesn't love him, it's that she doesn't love what or how he's treating her. So if you have to say yes, you do love him, but you don't love how you're being treated.
I want to push back just a little bit on that, because of this. They will hang on to every word you say and spin it right back at you. Mm-hmm. You said, you told me you loved me. Mm-hmm. You said you would fight for this marriage. You told me you would never ask for this, that, or the other. So every word you say, it comes back right at you. And if you said you love me, then you must do this, that, and the other. So I'm not saying lie, and I agree with you, Fiona. Sometimes you love him. And sometimes it takes you losing that love to finally decide and say, okay, I don't care what you feel, I'm done. Yeah. Right? Mm-hmm. But be careful in not staying quiet, because staying quiet won't save you from the abuse. Mm-hmm. So say it all the way through. Mm-hmm. Say it all the way through. Do you love me? Why are you asking me that? Mm-hmm. Why do you ask me if I love you? Are you feeling like do you feel like I should after what you've done? Have it all the way through. Mm-hmm. If you can't do it by yourself, that's where therapy and a counselor comes in, where those questions can be asked with someone in the middle. If the person decides they don't want to go to counseling with you, go by yourself. Don't say he needs therapy. Maybe you need it to be able to strengthen yourself to make the decisions you need to make too. So don't just leave, either we go together or he goes. You go
Yeah,
to learn how to deal with the situation you're living in.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Maricela here says the church counselors, pastors say that we need not to have separate bank accounts. We're one. We're supposed to trust each other.
How many of those pastors are women?
And having a separate bank account is not an issue of trust, right? We could debate that forever. I agree with you, Tricia. How many of them are women? But so many things can happen. I am an advocate of you have yours, I have mine, we can have one together. But this thing about all the money's tied up together, I've seen women financially gone into bankruptcy because of this. I've seen women lose money. It's just not a wise thing to do. Anything can happen.
Nope.
You want to make sure that there's always someone or there's always something that you have as a backup for yourself. And this is not heresy. This is just common sense for the 21st century that we live in. Those rules, those old time rules do not apply today. I'm very, very sorry. They do not apply.
And think of it this way: if something happens to that account, that joint account, there's no access to anything. So it's key that you have your own. I mean, if something happens and you need to help that person, but you can't touch that joint, that individual is always available.
Always. Agree.
You have to, if somebody makes a call and says, Tricia, could you lend me $200?
Mm-hmm.
I need to be able to do that without having to ask you permission to loan that money.
That's right.
Whether it be my mother, my best friend, if you want to buy yourself a pair of shoes and you're being responsible, you need to be able to make decisions as an adult without having to ask for permission. And this bank account conversation can be as flippant as shoes and as important as life or death.
Exactly. Absolutely. There's more we could say about this, but I just don't, I am not going to, I just feel it's a huge disadvantage. First of all, in the United States of America, you need to be 16 years old to have a savings account. When you say to a grown woman that she cannot have her own bank account, what are you saying to her really? This is deeper. This is not an issue of trust. This is deeper, right? And we need to be able to explore that and do what we need to do. Let me just share here. I had a joint bank account with, it was a white Jewish coworker who saw the train wreck coming, and he never told me, but he convinced me to open an account at a new bank. I will forever be grateful. Absolutely. I will forever be grateful. Let's go to our final question for the night. This has been such a rich discussion, and there's so many angles that this could go. But Fiona, can a toxic marriage become healthy? And where and how can women find help? Because at the end of the day, is there healing? Is it possible?
Mm-hmm.
I would say a resounding yes. In spite of all we've discussed, a toxic marriage can become healthy. However, it takes two.
Mm-hmm.
One person or the woman only cannot work on a marriage and make it work. It takes two, both parties.
Mm-hmm.
Being a woman of faith, it also takes divine intervention. Mm-hmm. For those who don't believe in God, who don't go to church, I don't know what would be your source, but I know it takes divine intervention. And the best thing to do is to have Christ in the center of your marriage. When that happens, everything falls into place. You live your lives, each for the other and both for the Lord. But it's not easy. Both parties have to want to do that. And you cannot force somebody who has their eyes somewhere else or who wants to be somewhere else. You cannot force them. Some of them wants to have their cake and eat it too. Some of them, they want to stay with you, but they still want to have outside relationship. And that's where all the issues come in, you probably would notice that for the most part, marriages don't come to an end as a result of little things. For the most part, it's abuse to the highest extent of the word, and also a third party. If your marriage is at a stage where you can work on it, I would say if your other half decides they want to do it, go right ahead. It can work. I'm a living example of that. We also need to know that the abuser cannot help him or herself. They need to find help. And we just cannot decide that, okay, they say they want it to work and that's it. We have to work through certain things. You have to find counseling. You have to find therapy to fix all that, or at least most of what were broken, and try to work things through. But to that question, definitely it can help. Where do you find help? Sometimes you may not be able to go to somebody physically, especially in this COVID-19 era. There are a lot of online sources. You can find a lot of stuff on the internet. If you need to interact, there are coaches, there are counselors, there are online therapy sites that you just have to, a lot of us have our phones. We can use our phones to the best advantage in finding help along that line. We need to know that we are not to be blamed. If you are in a toxic relationship and certain things are happening, do not blame yourself. That is one of the ways you can start finding healing, when you cease to see yourself as that person who did the wrong or who caused all this to happen. You did not cause anything. And especially if you're a person who try to live your best with integrity, decency, honesty, trust, everything that a relationship needs, don't blame yourself. You need to also know that you deserve respect, and your children need to be raised they deserve to be raised in a happy and safe home. If the one partner is not making that possible, we as women owe it to our children to see that they get the happiness and the safety that they deserve.
Fiona, thank you so much for that. I have a saying that I always say whenever I've had to speak about marriage. I always say to people, marriage is not for sissies. The same effort and energy that it takes to destroy a marriage is the same effort and energy that you have to put in to build it back up again. And it takes strength. Fiona has laid out some excellent pointers and advice here. So it will take courage, and it will take strength, and it will take the right decisions to be able to build it up. Our advocacy here is that you do not just stay there and take it. That's not an option. You have to choose one thing or the other, because the centering here is, if you have kids, safety, but for yourself also sanity and safety. We want to affirm Fiona. She's been fantastic. And before she leaves for the evening, we want to affirm her. Let's hear from the co-hostesses. What are some of your thoughts about this very lively discussion we've had today?
This wasn't a book lesson on theoretical practices on toxic marriages. This was someone who has lived it, who has overcome it, and who's willing to share it from her real life, total honesty, total transparency, full vulnerability. And that is why we have seen, has let us, contribute to that, but also has connected with so many of those that are with us via YouTube or Facebook. Thank you, Fiona. Thank you for writing the book. Thank you for the way you came today to play and to share what you know, so specific, very specific, practical ways of dealing with this issue from every point of view. And no one can leave here believing that we're man bashing or we don't believe in marriage, especially after this last comment you made. So thank you so much.
Welcome. Thank you.
Fiona, your courageous ability to be vulnerable enough to share it and to be transparent with something in your life that has been so traumatic and damaging, yet you've shown the resilience and the ability to be able to overcome the odds that are stacked against us as women, especially women of color. And so we thank you. And we thank you that Pink Room is a space that allows raw conversations, unscripted, as we always say. And it gives us each the opportunity to also learn, grow, and share. And so, again, we thank you. You are amazing always in what you have done. I've seen you in other settings before. So continue to tell your story. Everyone has a story, and your story is valuable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona. We cannot thank you enough for, I agree with my co-host. You came with your real self. You came to play. And you told it unscripted and real as it should be. So we thank you. I know that you're asking about your book. Please share where they can get your book. Those of you who have not read the book, I read the book in 3 sittings. It was a fascinating journey because I knew Fiona years ago, and when I heard she wrote this book and I started reading the book, I was like, oh no, I gotta finish this book. Because it was so, and she takes you through the journey of some very painful relationships, going now on to where she is now at a place of integrity, a healthy place, a happy place. And that's where we all need to be. So Fiona, tell them where they can get the book.
Okay, River Never Smooth, Reclaiming Power After Abuse. You can get it on my website, www.fionaharewood.com. Right now, I have quite a few speaking engagements. So the manager of my website, she has made available a coupon where you can get it at half price currently up to May 31st. And the coupon is Spring 4 RWI. So SPRING 4, the number 4, RWI. And with that coupon on my website, www.fionaharewood.com, you can get the book at half price. Otherwise, you can get it on Amazon.
Please repeat the discount code. I'm putting it in the chat. I put the website and now I'm putting in the chat. Spring 4 RWI?
Spring 4 RWI.
Great. Ladies, this is a great opportunity. Make sure that you grab and seize it. Thank you, Fiona. I see the beautiful comments here. Very empowering. Definitely true. Arlene said no filters. Thank you, leadership lady. Speaking to Sharon Gistom, but we learn from each other. And this is what I love about this space, because the ladies are having their own little conversation there. And I think it's fantastic. So we're sharing once again. The discount is Spring 4 RWI. The website is FionaHarewood.com, and you get a discount. And the name of the book is River Never. Show the book, River Never Smooth. River, a fascinating journey through relationships. And the same way she was the same way she was real and raw here, the book is just the same. So make sure that you get it. Make sure that you get it. Thank you so much, Fiona. We're
welcome
again tonight with our community care. And Fiona, again, we affirm you. Thank you for coming by. We hope that this is the first of many conversations that we will be having with you. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
We're going to go into we want to remind you that our next Pink Room is going to be on Sunday, May 16th, 8:30 p.m. And that is going to be with Anna Gabriels. Make sure you invite all your friends out to listen to this powerful woman. Not only is she a professional boxer with some power, with a powerful uppercut, but she's also had a journey that took her where she is today. It's a story that you need to hear for yourself. Fiona is the For Real Women International Global Ambassador. If you go to Times Square, we have a billboard there with Hannah. Sorry, not Fiona. With Hannah, and I think it's a 10-second billboard. You go to Times Square, you're going to see For Real Women International. We have a beautiful billboard there with Hannah, but you want to hear her story. So remember, mark it down in your calendars, Sunday, May 16th, 8:30 p.m., right on these same channels. Anna Gabriels, world boxing champion, is coming on to share her story and to tell you how it is that she got where she got. So now we're going to do our community care checklist as we always do. We want to leave you with some parting advice. So at this time, we're going to ask Tricia to take it away.
So I think that, as we mentioned several times today, it's important for us to be our sister's keeper. We may have a good friend that we see is making a mistake, and out of true concern for her, we need to speak up. We can't just stay quiet and say, it's none of my business. She's a big woman. She's an adult. She should know what she's doing, especially if she's resistant to hearing. That is when we really need to try to speak out of a place of love and concern. Provide a space just to listen, just a place for her where she can come and share what she's going through. Help her go through steps that she needs to make the correct decision. Take the kids out and help her to have some time for herself. Whatever it is that we need to do to be able to provide her with what she needs to be able to get out of a difficult situation. So be our sister's keeper, and at the same time, if you are the sister and someone is trying to keep you, pay attention and listen.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Dr. T. And because we were talking about relationships and specifically marriage, women, if you didn't know now, but you do know now, and you've learned now, you've heard now, or you still don't get it, but do hear this, that wives are independent beings. And you can radically release some of that toxicity that you're experiencing in spaces that will provide you with some support. If, as Dr. T said, a listening ear, some space to breathe, a place where you can figure out what your next move is if you plan on leaving and getting out of it. But remember, you as a wife, you came in as one. You are still that one person joining with another person. And so to radically release that toxicity, you have to find a space where it supports you for your authentic self as an independent person to be able to deal with how you're going to handle something that's not healthy.
Thank you so much, Shonda. And I would like to leave with you today that you, and I'm repeating something that we've said, Valerie said it last week so aptly. You deserve good, healthy love. Oftentimes, as women, we're either waiting for it to get better or we're not understanding that we're deserving of better. You deserve good, healthy love. Good, healthy love does not mean that everything is perfect every day. But good, healthy love means that you feel appreciated, that there's an understanding between the two of you, that you both cherish each other, that you're not diminishing each other, and you're worthy of it. You are worthy of it. And I want to encourage you, whether you stay, whether you leave, don't stop until you find it, until you get it, until you experience good, healthy love. And let's start by not internalizing the lies. And let's start by not believing and blaming ourselves for the behaviors of other people, especially the men who are leveling this toxicity on us. Let's start by understanding that we're worthy and that we deserve the kind of love that all women of this world deserve. So we want to say to you good night. I don't know if my co-hosts have anything else they want to add. This was certainly a great time spent. I see that the numbers kept up high. I see new people coming on board. A lot of thank yous for Fiona. Yes, Fiona, it was fantastic. A lot of women saying that the chat was about their life. We're so thankful that this time we were able to make some type of significant contribution to your life. Tricia, Shonda, anything you would like to add?
This isn't an easy topic for anybody.
Well said.
But it's necessary. And just because it isn't easy, this is probably one of the best places to have it. So thank you for spending your Saturday night with us.
Shonda, anything you would like to add?
Again, well said.
Okay.
Well said, my sisters.
Good night, everyone. We'll see you on the
16th
with Hannah Gabriels. Have a good night, everyone.
And we'll see you next time in the Pink Room.
The Pink Room is a produced resource of For Real Women International, Inc., a non-profit organization with headquarters in New York and affiliates in the United States, Latin America, and the Caribbean. The views expressed here by hostesses and guests do not necessarily represent the philosophy of For Real Women International, its affiliates, members, and board of directors.